Hello, welcome to the channel and thanks for watching. And this video is all about my Cadian armoured sentinels, how I got them painted up and ready for the battlefield as fast as humanly possible with some real time-saving techniques thrown in. The first of those time-saving techniques is how I've undercoated it. So I sprayed it black and then sprayed it with a lead belcher spray. When we've put the lead belcher on, we've not been so precious about getting every section as thickly coated in the metal as possible, and that'll give some nice shading effects. And a lead belcher spray is great because there's going to be big chunks of this model that we never even put a paintbrush to, the areas that we want to be left in that kind of silver colour, and also it lets us do some really nice battered metal effects without having to do multiple stages of like sponging or whatever on top of it. So what we're going to do first is start off with a retributor armour, and we're taking that and putting some brass sort of bronze effects across various parts of the model. So we're picking up the aquillas you can see there, kind of joints on the legs, and the ankles and things, and we're going to move on to the weapons. It's a great colour to use because in the 41st millennium, the Tech Marines and things, these are revered icons, and that brass just makes them look a little bit more special really than others. And that's personally what I find. So working on to the end of the weaponry there, we're going to do the weapons, we're going to do the vents across the back where the exhaust and things are, and just use brass across as much or as little of the model obviously as you want. Now, weapon choices is something worth talking about on the Sentinels. I went to build this model as the armoured Sentinel with the carapace on, and chose plasma cannons because they're cool and it's going to let us do some other effects. And this was really an experimental army, just to have a bit of fun with. Use the missile launcher and the chainsaw there as well. Now you can see when we're putting the green on, which is the first main layer, you can see around those areas where I've drilled bullet holes and things in the front, we haven't gone right up to those areas with the green. We've left sections of metal showing through. We're taking the same thing up onto the top and onto the sides. Anywhere there'd be a contact point, we've basically done it so that it looks like the paint has worn off. Now it looks a bit scrappy at the moment, but when we do the next stages, it will really pull it together and you'll see the aged effect in process. Now moving on to do some black detailing. In the Cadian shock trooper video that I've done on the channel, so if you want to check that out after this video, you'll see that I've done black around a lot of the casings of the weapons. So this kind of ties visually in this vehicle and gives the same kind of theme across the army. So black around the casing of the plasma cannon and also in there to the shroud, I suppose you'd call it, around the chainsaw blade and into how it's fitted. So one common thing I do with all armies is try and have some common colours and common themes about where those colours go across all the models. So black onto weapon casings across this model, for example, and then move on to some red in a minute that you'll see ties the same thing in. So black onto the missile casing here. Now you'll notice I've left a little bit of black missing on the plasma cannon and the chainsword because they would be battered and knocked around in battle. I've not going to leave any metal showing through the paint and gaps with the missile because missiles will get produced and it'll get shot and it won't have time to get battle worn. So just something to think of there. Now I'm going to use red around the plasma casings and also on the fuel cells and things around the vehicle because that feels like, it designates a fuel colour. Now I'm going to do the plasma glow later on in blue. If you fancy doing a red plasma glow, you might want to choose to do these gun casings in a different colour so it doesn't, clash. Same principle when I'm putting these together, leaving some metal showing on the corners there. You'll see where the weapon might get knocked, again to show that although they do maintain these weapons with great care and everything, they are going to get bashed kind of on the battlefield. So, but the same again with the missile tip. I'm not making the missile tip look bashed because again these would be produced, brought to the battlefield, stuck on a sentinel and fired off. And in case you're wondering, I've put the missiles on different sides of the different sentinels. So we do 3 sentinels, just again for some slight visual difference because otherwise they're going to look very, very similar, these sentinels. Now one thing to note is I don't do unit markings or anything on these at this point. I might go back to do that later, but I wanted to get these on the table as fast as possible because again, if you check my Instagram out, you'll know that I've used these in a little mini tournament with some friends and I was doing a quick colour scheme to get them ready. Now this is the part where we're again pulling the models into what the Cadian shock troops look like. So we're taking this green grey to do the packs and pouches and straps that are on this little additional bit of extra equipment that you can take 2 or 3 of these and there's different ones you can put on. Now moving on to a desert yellow for the tarpaulins or camo net, that thing that's on there. Again, I'm choosing to match them to the troopers that I've done already. You might want to do a difference. So the paints I've listed up on the top left of the screen as we've been going. It's also going to be on a screen at the end where all the paints I've used are listed together. If you want to use the exact paints you can, or you can just take that for inspiration. Another thing you might want to check out is down below in the links, there'll be links to pieces I used, to other videos, my other socials, that kind of thing. So you might want to check those out as well while you are there. Now onto the screen that's in the cockpit. So a little bit of blue in there. You could leave the screen just blank and leave it with that kind of silvered effect and it would look absolutely fine. I just think dropping a bit of blue in there just puts some little extra colours, you know, that you might want to use. Now that's the standard painting done. So you'll notice we haven't done anything on the vast majority of the metallics on here, and that's the beauty of that spray. If we'd have sprayed black, we'd have been doing an awful lot of dry brushing to go around the model, so a massive time saver. Now I'm taking some Nuln Oil and putting that just on where the vents are at the back with the exhausts. That is to take the colour of the brass around there down a tone, just to show that it's, you know, worn differently. Now I do some extra effects on these areas that I wasn't planning to do originally when I did this, so but I think it still works out quite nicely. You could leave it at that. Now when it's thoroughly dried, this is what we're looking like. So actually you could stick this on a table now and play away with it, but here's the other magic special. If you watch my channels a lot, you know I love doing shades, and if you use an all over shade wash properly, it can really impact the model particularly well. Now this is the Games Workshop Sepia shade. You could use any Sepia shade. My general favourite is a Vallejo one that is a much dirtier shade than this, but that requires you to do a lot of work after the wash level. And this army was really just about getting a quick army on the table for a mini tournament I was going to. So there's no real extra work to do on the vast majority of this model after you've done this shade, as you'll see. Now when you're doing it, try not to make it pool anywhere. I made a little bit of a mistake where a couple of the armour panels I put a bit too much on. You can see it's pooling at the bottom of the panel there. On all the other colours, it's made them look really nice, and there's no extra work needed at all. A little bit too much onto these panels. So what I'm doing now is taking a very light dry brush. There's virtually no paint on this brush at all, and just brushing that over where the shade has pulled up a little bit too much, just to take that pooling down a little bit, make it not look so obvious. So if I'd have put the shade on you know, correctly, not as a right and wrong way, it's all about experimentation when you use shades, but if I'd have put it on a little bit lighter on those flat panels, the model would already be done. And that's again the second massive time saving stage. You could go back over the rest of the model and do some highlighting layers with, you know, the colours you've already used, because it's now darkened off. You could use those same colours and do some highlights and some extra pieces, but really on a big vehicle I don't think it's necessary. On the Troopers, if you watch the Trooper video, you'll know that I did go back and do some highlight stages, so check that out and you'll see what I would have done on these if I felt it was necessary, but I really didn't. So you can see here now we're doing a 3-stage wash to do some burnt effects on the ends of the guns and also on the vents. So I'm not going to go into massive detail about what I'm doing, I'm just showing you, and at some point I'll do another either a short or a video on these effects. But essentially we're taking Druchii Violet and we're covering 3/4 to sort of maybe 90% of it with the Druchii Violet, letting that dry. Then we're taking 1/2 to 3/4 doing Drakenhof Nightshade, and then at the very end of it we're doing Nuln Oil just on maybe 20% at the end, and that makes a really nice burnt effect you can see there on the end of that plasma gun. Now, doing some object source lighting, I've done some plasma go into the gun there. Don't want this video to be too long though, so I will do a separate video on how to do plasma glow, but I'm just putting some object source lighting across the rest of it to reflect that glow. But you can see there the nice burnt effect on the end of the cannon. So check out the channel for later on, and there will be another video about how I've been experimenting with plasma glow. That was part of the reason I did plasma guns, because it's not an effect I've really done too much, so it's good fun to experiment. You can see here the 3 completed models. I'm really pleased with how they turned out. A nice, simple, quick colour scheme that got these on the battlefield really quickly. And yeah, I think it's had some really good visual impact, so I'm really pleased with these models. If you did like them yourself, look, like, comment, subscribe. Watch the channel for later on when we're going to do a plasma glow video at some point. And check out my other videos down there for my other Cadians and lots of other content on my channel. So look, hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you again soon.